The war will end, the leaders will shake hands. The old woman will keep waiting for her martyred son. The girl will wait for her beloved husband, and the children will wait for their hero father. I don't know who sold our homeland, but I saw who paid the price Mahmoud Darwish. In my 3 years as a student at this university, we have witnessed loss and conflict in the world. In my first year, the world was reeling from a pandemic. In my second year, a war started in Ukraine. And now, in my third year, there are two major wars waging in the world that constantly assault our timelines and thoughts. As conflict rages through the world, we convene here today to understand the fragility of life in the aftermath of war. What war means to those fighting it, to those bearing the cost of it, and to those who spend their entire existence documenting it. Hello everyone, my name is Reet Kaur Sahani and I'm the president of the JSJC Student Council. Welcome to the JSJC Media Conclave, previously called Journalism Tomorrow, where we discuss books, movies, politics, and immerse ourselves in conversations around the media. The Media Conclave The Media Conclave is GSJC's flagship festival that helps one think and rethink, learn and unlearn existing ideas, and allows us to challenge our biases. It is a festival that's meant to make you question the uncomfortable silences that all of us choose to keep and the ones we selfishly choose to break. As someone who's been in every edition of the Media Conclave, first as an organizing committee member and then as a chair for 2 consecutive years, I stand here proudly to reflect on the immense growth that the school has seen in these past 3 years. From a school that catered only to journalism in my first year, we've comfortably opened our gates to both film and corporate communication. With state-of-the-art studios and courses that give us hands-on experience of the media world, GSJC offers to a student growth and experience both in and out of the classroom. Amidst all that we experience and consume on a daily basis, it is important for all of us as individuals in the world of media to understand that none of these issues lie isolated. The reverberations of a bomb dropping seas away can be felt right here, right now, as we speak today. With brands like Starbucks and McDonald's facing the wrath of what's happening in Israel and Palestine, it is certain that nothing, absolutely nothing, lies at a juncture where it is apolitical and unaffected. To understand this very phenomena of how brands manage a crisis amidst a waging war in surging markets, we have with us someone who is referred to as the go-to crisis expert for corporate India. Yes, I'm talking about none other than Mr. Dilip Cherian. With 30 years of work and founding of South Asia's top PR agency, Perfect Relations, Mr. Cherian has earned himself the acronym the Image Guru of India. He started his career in government and then went on to become the editor of Business India and Business Daily Observer. A board member of multiple corporates and NGOs, he is also invested in startups, run restaurants, design studios, and other ventures over the years. Mr. Cherian has worked as a communications consultant to over 5,200 corporates and has mentored top CEOs. In another avatar, he is also called to strategize for many political parties, where he interestingly works across party lines with leaders of various hues and provides insights on external communications, internal communications, as well as public matters. He is an independent director on several media boards, including FM channel Radio 1, Jagran Prakashan, publisher of India's largest newspaper, Dainik Jagran, and has an in-depth understanding of other industries by serving as a board member to giant as Bajaj Corps Limited. Such a pleasure to have you with us here, sir. In conversation with Mr. Cherian is our very own faculty member, Professor Ambreen Khan, an experienced and renowned communications and brand professional. Over the last 3 decades, Professor Khan has studied cultures of the world and mastered the art of developing ideas that attract diverse groups of people and organizations in building their unique brands. Professor Khan joined the Indian Express, one of the leading newspapers of India, in 2006 and currently heads their communication and strategic partnerships. She's also maintained long-term associations with Tata Trust and Kerala Foundation, which inspires her to work harder for the upliftment of the less privileged. Working regularly with the Taj Hotels, She helps them build their cultural canvas and new age innovations in the food and lifestyle space. Imparting industry insights to young minds, she also serves as visiting faculty at the AGK MCRC, Jamia Millia Islamia, a leading center for journalism and mass communication. Over to you, Professor Khan, for the proceedings of the day.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Oh, it's going to be so thanda, then this conversation is not headed anywhere. Good morning. Yeah, now we're getting better. So, thank you very much, Reed. Thank you, our dean, Keshalib, an old friend, and our faculty members, and students from various schools, not just journalism school. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, great. So, first and foremost, tell me how many of you all are on Twitter and and are very active on social media? Twitter, Insta. Okay. And what do you guys follow? Do you follow news or information?
Or cats.
What do you all follow? News or information? Or lots and lots of reels? As that's what I don't know. Why am I doing it? But I'm doing it these days. I'm going to quit it very soon. Okay, so my first, taking forward what Reed mentioned, one particular point which I think is extremely important, which we're going to bring into our conversation today, is Hindi and regional languages. Okay, earlier communications, it sounded very, very sophisticated. Any international or Indian company, who would want to look good, who would want to communicate about their brand, their organization, or also about their growth, their development, and managing crisis. It was only focused on one language, and that was English. But now suddenly, with politics getting regional, communications also become regional. And this is something we're going to discuss with Mr. Cherin, his view in today's time and age. But before we move forward, my first point, which just to set the mood, is I'm going to request him to say something to get you interested and also to provoke your minds so that we can make this conversation a bit more interesting than a regular exchange of Q&A.
Thank you, Amreen. What's the hashtag for today? No. It has to be pompous and immodest as always. DC at JSAC. JC for today, just now, for this session. The rest you can figure out what you want to do. I will use that hashtag. Okay? Yeah. JSJC. We can play. You can decide whether you want DC at JSJC, if you think that looks better and less work. Yes? You in the green. You agree? Thank you. Let me go with that. We have to live with it. The second thing I wanted to ask, Amreen, if I may, is that while men look like an endangered species on this in this group, is it also required that at least two of them should wear hoodies? They're just sleepy, I guess, okay? Correct? So that's all right. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Ambreen. Thank you to the Dean who is traveling. And no, the Dean is here. The Vice Chancellor is not here. He's traveling. And it's a pleasure to be at a school which has red seats, a great auditorium, and hopefully a bunch of people who will ask questions and take this process forward. If you don't ask questions, Ambreen will ask some, but we're going to stop it at two stages in between, and this is with her permission, for you to ask questions in between. So all questions will not be at the end. And in those gaps, if you don't ask questions, I'll ask questions. Can figure out. Okay? Because I think communications, to be effective, I have a slide presentation which will, a PowerPoint will put you all to sleep, guaranteed. So I'm not going to go do that. I'm not even proposing that. But what I propose is that we make this a conversation. And I'd like you all to argue back. If you don't think, and I'm going to make some statements like the one on cats, deliberately to check whether I have the temperature right of the audience. If I don't, that means that I'm either talking at a mind-altering kind of thing. I don't mean substance abuse. I mean at a point where you're not interested, or I'm speaking on subjects which you're not interested. So keep me on the straight and narrow, engage, and then let's elevate after that.
Wonderful.
Done?
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's just alter the game. I'm going to take the first question from our dean. Now suddenly everyone is on vigilant mode.
Oh, yeah. How does one communicate in the age of totalitarianism?
One line. Extraordinarily smart jokes. Extraordinarily smart jokes. So smart that only the truly smart can understand it, and that the police can never figure it. Let me tell you one thing that hasn't changed in totalitarianism. The people who agree to police you are not so smart. So it's not just because I know that a large part of your faculty comes from JNU, but also because I truly believe, as someone who actually wrote the exam and got into the police service, into the IPS, and turned it down, I promise you that the mindset of someone who wants to be a policeman, as opposed to being a spy, which some of you may still aspire to, is essentially not very smart. He's like that dumb class monitor you want to avoid. Or she is like that, okay? So there now, I have a very dear friend who's a sharpshooter for the NIA and has killed about 18 people. And she told me the other day something which, to my mind, didn't sound very smart. And I was very comforted by the fact that she is one of the senior people in one of our spook agencies. I love it when they're not that smart, because it fits my stereotype of them. So to answer this question, totalitarianism, communication, how to work, the answer is very smart jokes.
Thanks.
Anybody else, or should we start off? Mr. Cherian, my personal observation is between MCRC at Jamia and Jindal, that, journalism, passion for journalism and reporting seem to be coming down. And suddenly there's an urge from 50 or 60% of the students in our classes and also School of Journalism, that they want to experiment and they want to first jump into PR. So just take us through how and what opportunities and what are the skill sets that are required by these youngsters to experiment. The idea is to ensure that besides just teaching a course, we also help them navigate their way and also mentor them that, look, this is the real world. You want to do a startup because this is time and age for startups, or you want to just go and learn a particular, or just go and get a course and just start looking for jobs. So what is your view? It'll be wonderful if you just, you share this as your introductory.
You know, the big dilemma that you should face as students getting out into the world of work or startups is actually not that difficult to resolve for you. And I'm talking about you as a cohort. All of you come from homes where your parents, if they are willing, kind, and generous, should be able to substantially underwrite your first 3 professional years in terms of food and stay. Am I right? Am I wrong? So the answer to Ambreen's question is, do the hardest and the lowest paid job which gives you the maximum exposure to the best quality talent, where you pick surreptitiously, and I'll come to the surreptitious part, the best supervisory talent that you'll be working under. Don't agree to work for a duffer because she's willing to pay you a higher salary. Don't agree to take a job where you don't have respect for the top boss, who you may never meet, but must be hyper bright. If I were to take a job today, if I were to have the whole world to choose from, who would I choose to work under? I want answers. Who would you choose to work under if you had the whole world to choose from and you had to work under somebody? One example from India first.
Internationally, I'll tell
No,
you.
no, I want
No.
India first from them. Virat Kohli. Okay.
Who?
I must be ignorant. Tell me more. Okay.
Wildlife.
Fair enough. Don't know him. The only photographer I know is a chap called Raghu Rai, who used to tell me, Dilip bhai, yahan khade ho jao. Jaan aa jayega photo mein. Shut up, Raghu. Get that picture and let's get on with it. Okay. So, I don't know him, but good choice. Any other choices? India, aspirational boss who you want to work under? Shah Rukh Khan?
Fantastic, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. For what reason? Give me a reason. Actually, the reason to work with the Shah Rukh Khan is because, having known him a little, he's the most cracked in the head human being I know. He's certifiably brilliant and honestly disruptive. I only dealt with him when his son was arrested professionally. And let me tell you, he is cold as steel. All the rest is acting. He is cold and calculating as a supercomputer. Brilliant. So it's a good choice. Okay, now internationally. These are good, but not what I would think. Okay? P. Sainath from India. Okay. Change the world. Fair enough. Good idea.
Anybody from here?
Michelle Obama is a good choice. Anyone else? Meryl Streep. Okay. I heard one Meryl Streep. Someone said it. Who said it? Did you say did someone say Meryl Streep? You did? Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Fair enough. No Sam Altman, no Elon Musk. Where are you guys living? Under a rock? Very bad choices.
Except for?
Meaning, except for Shah Rukh Khan from India, and maybe, you know, that wildlife photographer who I don't know, who you will send me a message to tell me who it is, I'll forget, or else I hope someone else will. But, you know, you really need to think of minds that will change the world. And you need to search for those bosses. Yes, I used to work for the father. The father was twice as brilliant as both the children put together. Meaning, you know, he used to say, ye MC Madrasi ko kuch nahi aata. And then he abused me some further. Okay? But he was brilliant. And Mukesh is brilliant. Okay? But the father was, I'm not joking when I say this, put the brains of the two kids together and then multiplied by some factor, that is where he was. And he was, again, completely cold as steel. And I'm not saying that this is a great quality, but this is something I noticed in both men. Never unsteady under pressure. Not moved by pressure. That's the quality of a great boss usually. So, the answer to the question that Ambreen asked is, what is the career trajectory that you should push for yourself? Look to work with a super boss and don't worry what the price that they're willing to pay for your time is. Don't make the mistake of jumping your first job because you've got a 5,000 rupee per month increment in the next job that's being offered to you. Don't make that mistake. The worst biodata that you can have is a biodata that shows 3 job changes in the first 4 years. It shows inability to make up your mind. And that's anyway quite irritating, right? Yes, no? I'm asking you. No, not you, the girl in front of you. Is inability to change your mind irritating or not? Thank you. So, if you want a career in communications, should you start with journalism? The answer is yes, you should. Because in communications, you're trying to affect the output of someone in the media. So get into the media first. Do that first. I'm not saying in terms of courses, by the way. You don't have to do a journalism course and then do a comms course. That's not what I mean. I mean in terms of career. In terms of career and in terms of studies, always do the tougher bit first when your mind is younger. When your capability of producing longer hours as opposed to working smarter is higher. You work smarter as you get older. But you work harder when your body and soul allows you to put in those extra hours. Next question.
I noticed that none of you all actually said any politician. You did not take any politician's name. And you never even spoke about any of the organizations. We said, she said SRK, then somebody said Virat Kohli, then somebody said Ambani, and someone else said P. Sainath, but nobody actually brought in. So why do you think that does this concern you? Or what is it that these brands are doing that they're not capturing the mind space of the youths that they want to work? Like I've worked with the finest companies. I've just been fortunate from campus, from a Citibank to the Oberoi with the Tatas, with the Indian Express. So sometimes are brands bigger than individuals, or the time has changed? Individuals are bigger than brands. He's ex-NDTV. So, these are the brands that you take a lot of pride in working with certain brands. But where is the gap? just understanding or picking it up from the pulse in the room is essentially individuals more than the brands or any political heroes. Like I want to be a strategist, a political strategist, okay, but for who? Maybe BJP. I have one of my students, Sanchit, sitting here, and we were discussing brands, and he was very peculiar, and he always sticks to one particular point. He said, "Oh, I want to work with. I think one of the biggest brands in the world is BJP." Okay, and nobody picked that up. So, what do you think is going on? What pulse are you getting of the youth from this room?
Honestly, I'm not interested in the pulse of the youth beyond a point. But I love you all, okay? But I'm not interested in your pulse. There are facts and there are feelings. I'm a fact person. The fact, Ambreen, is that today, most brands that are hyper successful are linked to a personality. Only personalities that have the ability to break through the titanium ceiling of a brand really matter. And therefore, the person, meaning, you may know of Tesla and X, but you certainly know that Elon Musk owns them. You may know of ChatGPT and AI, but if you don't know that Sam Altman owns them, then you don't matter to me. Facts, not feelings. However, smart women and smart men make sure that they create brands which either run alongside them or provide them with insurance cover. If Mukesh wants to take a break, he must have Jio as a cover or Jio as a kavach. Either way. So you need a brand, and if you're smart enough as a business leader or as a political leader, you need the BJP if you're a Narendra Modi. Let me tell you that despite Ambreen's residing faith in the BJP as a brand, it is a human being. It's an individual who's much bigger than the brand, but needs the brand to allow the organization to function. Everyone can't work for me in perfect relations. I have 400 employees when I ran Perfect Relations full time. When I ran the disinformation office for the Ambanis, I had 150 people. But everyone's not working for me. Many of them know that they're going to be led by me. But I have to have an organization where they can be taken in. Then the trick is to pick and choose the brightest there, the smartest there, the most hardworking there, the one who doesn't care. When I used to run the newspaper for the Ambanis, and I'm not trying to set role models for you, I used to go to office at between 10 and 10:30 in the morning, journalism of course, and I used to return home between 1:30 and 2 in the morning, every day. 3 years, setting up the newspaper, launching it, running it, 10:30 in the morning, 2 at night, 2 in the morning, return. Every single day. There was no Sunday off. There was no me time. So the bosses pick monkeys who are willing to perform like this. Leaders look for people who are willing to mess with their biology, mess with their family life, mess with their sleep cycles, mess with that, because only they matter. All the rest are shits. You have to have numbers, no? To fill in the forms and to, have coffee in the cafeteria. They don't matter. So if you really want to be outstanding, I'm sorry, this is not politically correct, but you'll have to sacrifice pretty much everything else if that is your driving ambition. If not, come to mama. Hi, Mera Munda. There are two options. You can opt for that. I have no objection to that. But don't expect to have a dream. That ain't happening whether you're a startup, whether you're a stock trader. Maybe stock trader could work. Correct? Maybe. But even there, if you're not watchful, you have a reputation to live by. I'm sorry, they said that somewhere. So, you have to be alive and alert every minute to win. And if you don't win every day, you've lost that day. If you don't win every day, consider that day a loss. There's no marking time.
I have one question, and after that, we'll just engage with you all, which is just switching a little off the regular conversation. Ms. Cherian, you've been in the business for a very long time, and you've seen the landscape of public relations and communications. Now, traditional PR and communications business was traditional, and it was just more of thinking, strategy, and executing it. Today, suddenly the whole space has been taken over by influencers. So many students from here only, you'll be surprised that once I went to Aligarh Muslim University, and one of the kids, she decided that she's going to have me over next day for chai. So I went out. In Aligarh, there's a very small market, and I landed up in a very pretty looking cafe, and there were 7 girls, and there was one particular girl who knew everything on the menu. And she said, no, let's not order this, let's order this, and let's order that, and let's just, And then when the food lands up on our table, she's taking photographs. So I said, what are you doing? How do you know so much? She said, well, I'm an influencer. So I said, what kind of following do you have? And what do you mean by influencer? She said, I do food, quote unquote, I'm a food influencer. I make these guys and these dishes popular. So, and what kind of following would a girl of 21 or 22, 21 or 23, between that range, she has a following of 50,000 in a small little place, in a campus which has how many, 20, 30,000 girls, only in that part of, in that campus. So suddenly, every second person who is popular on social media is become an influencer, and they also think that they know PR. So from where to where? So where are we in the business of PR in today's world?
Difficult question, right? Are we allowed French on campus? Am I allowed to use the F word? Okay. So in communications, there's only one game in town. It is to mind fuck the other person. That's it. Traditional, old-fashioned, new-fashioned influencer. It's essentially messing with that person's mind. How can you do that? The tools have changed. The internal exercise hasn't. How do you make that person like your post, follow your hashtag, or give you a follow? How do you make that editor carry your story? How do you make NDTV avoid that story? How do you make something trend? How do you make sure that your post slays? Ultimately, it's about mind F. If you don't know how the mind works, So where do you start for doing this process of mind effing? Where do you start? Let me have the best answer that you can give me. Where do you start if you want to play this game? It's a game. Where do you start? Brilliant. Research your audience. Spend time on researching your audience. When Dhirubhai Ambani wanted to influence a government policy, what did he research? He says, बेंचो जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी का नाम बताओ और उसका पूरा कुंडली दो मुझे. The joint secretary will decide what my policy is going to be. I don't want to know the minister. I've bribed him already. I don't want to know the secretary. I control him already. But tell me the kundli of the joint secretary who's going to write it. I want that. When on the rare occasion that Dhirubhai was raided and his office in Delhi was raided, apoplectic with rage, he called up his head of government relations and he said, मुझे कोई नहीं फर्क पड़ता कि raid करके सब paper ले जाए. What I want to know is, why did I not know 1 hour before? Research, information. So, understanding your audience is so fundamental. I think you guys have a school of psychology. If I were all of you, I would take at least 2 programs there. Understand how the mind works. Only then can you mess with it. All of PR is about mind messing. The editor, the publisher, the marketing head, the audience, the silly people who are going to be doom scrolling, all of them, you need to know what's in their mind. What is the trigger for them today? And how is that trigger different tomorrow? And what was that trigger yesterday? Research. That's a good start. Excellent. What is the second thing that you need? This is tougher than the first. That's part of researching the audience. So that comes under that broad bucket. What is the second thing? Simple. This is not, see, I always tell people that, how many of you over here have read Walter Isaacson's book on Elon Musk? Great. Anyone else? No one else? Guys, please start to read. You know, Elon Musk does not know how to launch a rocket. But he knows that for everything, you go back to first principles. A rocket has to get off the ground and go past the atmosphere. He says that is what a rocket has to do. So go back to first principles. So in first principles thinking, the second part of what you want to do if you want to communicate after you research the audience is, what is the content you have? Then you got to massage it and make it fit into mind effing the audience you've researched. So what do you have as material? Cat picture? Food picture that this influencer has? So understand what is the content you have before you start doctoring it. Doctoring it is what I'm supposed to be skilled at. Spin doctoring. So I spin it so that when it hits the pitch, which is the audience, it goes, the bounce goes in the direction of the wicket. So content. Understand the ball that is in your hand. The pitch is the audience. Since most of you understand cricket, I'm assuming that none of you have missed the metaphor here. If you have, you can ask questions.
Mohsen, why don't you ask the question that we were discussing when I entered the room? I just met the faculty. Would be great if you identify yourself so that
Yeah,
he knows.
I teach in the School of International Affairs. And, I have basically a question on politics. In terms of political messaging, what is more, obviously you have to have content, but how do you convince an audience if you're a startup political party, say, for example, or you're a challenger, you're what you have, I believe you have done it for some political parties as well. You have done image consulting and brand consulting. What are the most important issues there, points there? And of course, then there's a follow-up question which I'll ask later if I have the chance.
So if I understand the question correctly, it is that if you are a challenger brand, how do you create impact and how do you influence issues? That's pretty easy. Done it several times. It's a formula. It's a mind effing formula. What is the formula? No, that's old. We've been there, done that. Cherin is not going to repeat himself. If he does, put your hand up and say you're repeating yourself, man. When a challenger becomes attention worthy, go back to fundamentals. That is not a phone call. That is an alarm to say, I have to leave at 12. What is the time that a challenger looks attractive to you? No. The first thing is when the other guy is very big. So attack a big guy. Attack a big issue. Attack something which you think is like an immovable object. So what's the classic story which reflects that? You can either end up looking like an idiot, as in this case, I'm going to give you an example, or you can be a winner. So all of those who have read the Don Quixote story know that tilting at a windmill gets you attention, but can make you look ridiculous. But that's the risk you take. Attack something that is so big, so immovable, that people pay attention to you. Who is this guy daring to challenge this object which cannot be moved? That's the way to get attention if you're a challenger brand. So, if you're a challenger party, you've got to attack something which is the core belief of the biggest opposition in the country. And that's how you start the game. But the problem with a lot of challenger parties and a lot of startups is they don't think of step 3, 5, and 6. They only think that we must challenge something big. They don't think what the retaliation is going to be. They don't think in a totalitarian system, what happens next? What if? You got to think of step 2, 3, 5, 7, 14. That's the mind game you play with first. So in communications, what we do is, when I'm putting out for a political party that is small, a communication that I want to get attention for, I've got to think what is going to be the pushback. What's going to be the attack on me? And what should I say then? Then what will be the response? How do I make sure there's a response? And how do I make sure that the intensity of the response validates my existence? That's the game. So it's the mind game. It's the quality of the mind. It's the quality of the training. It's the quality of the reading. It's the quality of the psychology course that you didn't attend. It's the quality of the mathematics course that you're trying to avoid by being here. It's all of that put together. It's that Excel sheet you're scared of. It's everything. It's the tough things. Get someone to work with you on the tough things if you've skipped all those courses. The maths is important. The physics is important. The chemistry is important. The psychology is important. Sorry, you have to pick all these skills up if you want to play this game. It's not just a game of pretty pictures. Even a photographer or a movie maker knows that to play with the mind is the toughest game. Everyone is not equally endowed to play this game, which is why there are winners and losers. Oh, I thought for a minute we had emotion. I know we only had a sneeze, I'm joking. So, the point is that learning to play this game requires you to also, and this is the third thing. Number one was research the audience. Number two was figure out your content. And number three is pick your partners. You can't do everything yourself. You're not that smart. You are not Elon Musk. You're not even, what you talk, who was the cricketer you mentioned? Virat. So, you're not any of this. Pick your partners. Make sure you know who can help you in that game.
Any questions? Let's have an interesting engagement. Raghav? I know some because I interact with them.
Hello. So today's topic, as you can see, is managing brands during a crisis. So what I've understood a little regarding rebranding of brands, rebranding in particular, was that we need three main elements. That is like luxury of time, commitment of investments, and third, the reinvention of the new product. Now, this couldn't be in this, like this wouldn't be applying for all rebranding things. There might be new elements attached to it. But hypothetically, I just wanted to ask for a brand like Byju's, which has gone down now. Keeping in these three elements in mind, what other elements would you add in hypothetically to rebrand a brand like Byju's, which has gone down right now?
Difficult question. Can I just go over the list of things that you have in your list already?
Yeah. Luxury of time, commitment of investment, and third, a reinvention of your product, a new product, get into the market.
No, the reason I ask for that is because I personally believe that despite whatever you've been taught, that sequence is probably something we need to check. Now, in the context of Byju's. You know, I happen to know a little bit about Byju's because they came to me about 6 months ago and I said no. And you know why I said no? Because I figured then that they were lying. Now, when you go to your doctor, your psychiatrist, your lawyer, or your PR person, don't lie. Get naked first. Tell them, boss, this is what the situation is. Nanga hoke baat karo pehle. Otherwise, you will never get good advice. And if someone thinks that they are so smart at the tender age of 38 or 42 to try and mind mess with Cherian, then, boss, Hashtag is right. Disaster. Okay? No, because you really don't want to do this. You tell me the truth, na? So, the answer your question, the first thing is get someone to do an assessment of what your remainder strengths are. Today, what is Baiju's remainder strength? It is not brand. It is not product. Baiju's remainder brand is that there is a lot of public investment in retaining some credibility for people who came out of there. So what is your biggest strength? Should actually be your alumni. Have you seen any action on that? No. Because I did for free, I didn't charge them a fee because I wasn't going to take them on because they were lying. I did tell them this, that look inwards and see what your biggest strength is. You know what their biggest answer was? We are financially sound. Low debt company. Hello? I can read a balance sheet. I used to be editor of Business India at a time when Business India was the only business magazine in the country. I can read a balance sheet. I don't even need to read a balance sheet today. I can pick up the phone and talk to the top PE guys in the country. And I know the people who are, there's a South African company called Prosus, who was the biggest investors in Baiju's. The head of that is a very bright Sardar in India. And he told me, boss, garbad lag raha hai. You're an investor in the company. Aapko garbad lag raha hai, so then why should I be convinced? That's the short answer to your question. I can give the longer answer, but I won't because there was a question from just ahead of you. You've forgotten your question now.
No, I wrote it down.
Wow.
Yeah, because I got a little bit intimidated by all the answers because they were so cutthroat. So I'm a third-year journalism student, and for 3 years we've basically been taught how disinformation and propaganda has been plaguing the world, and how it also, snowballs into violence sometimes. And we've also been taught that ethical journalism is the key pillar to, good journalism, which is speaking truth to power, as our dean says all the time. But communications is all about putting up a front sometimes, right? And do you think that ethics can be integrated into communication, or is it just a cutthroat profession where everything is fair in love and war, so you just have to do what you have to do sometimes?
Now I am the one who's intimidated. I didn't realize I was giving cutthroat answers. Go slow, Cherian. Try and be kind. These are children here. Not cold. Yeah, not cold and rapier sharp. Okay. No, you can't be completely ethical or just when you're doing communications of the kind that I'm doing. I have only 2 or 3 simple rules that I follow. I don't take on anyone who is lying to me on their first chance of speaking to me. I am ethically against only one thing. It's not tobacco. It's not cocaine. Guess what it is? Tell me. Guess. There's no risk. I promise you I will not be cutthroat. No, we've been over lies. There's a second thing that I'm ethically against.
Me too.
I'll come to that. Sugar overload. I will not back products that have consciously not addressed what I consider the biggest plague on humanity today, which is sugar overload. Okay? Though I must confess that one of the big crises I handled was the Coke crisis on water. So before you guys do research and say, but sir, you did this, don't care first. Never be consistent. Third rule,
Boring.
never be consistent. Okay, I did Coke. I did the company Coke. I don't care a shit. I don't care a shit that I'm against sugar now. I can change, right? Only foolish people stick to the same rules when the rules have changed. You're playing golf and you suddenly want them to expect the ball to move like in cricket. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. So, don't bother being consistent. And to answer your question, the ethics need to be something which are determined by you as to I will do this and I will go this far. But please understand that if you want to go very far, that is why that, there is that funny thing on Instagram, that if you want to go far, go alone, or what is it? There's some rubbish, there's some series of 3 things on Instagram, or we of a certain, something like that. There is some way. Anyway, the broad thing is, don't get over involved with this ethics business, because then you can't play the game. Because at the end of the day, you're mind effing someone. That's not very ethical. Okay? You're getting into their mind, and if you are a Malayali, you know the famous thing about Malayalis and the brain, right? All of you know the joke? Oh, well, if you put a nail into a Malayali's head, it'll come out as a corkscrew. Strike a nail into a Malayali's head and it comes out as a corkscrew. So, mind messing is not ethical. But that's what the key fundamental skill of communications is. Especially if you don't have a nice shoulder to lean on, like she does. Are you awake? Good. Thank you. I was just teasing you. You're most welcome to continue doing what you're doing. Okay, any other question? Yes, you have an incomplete question. Or
Raghav, can we take a question first from the back? Huh?
Okay,
And then we'll come
Go
back
ahead.
to you. Yeah.
he's bringing the mic to you.
As you have a question.
From the president.
Hi.
Don't be scared. Ask the question.
So I'm Pragya. I'm a JSJC alumni. And
Alumni?
Yes.
Wow, that's impressive.
Thank you. So I kind of wanted to ask about the current brand boycotts with the situation in Palestine right now. So apart from brands like Starbucks and McDonald's, there are smaller brands like Dove, HP, which have also been involved in the boycott, because there are people on social media who have delved deeper and seen their funds and everything and started boycotting them. So then what do you do in this situation when your research shows that you will profit if you do something, but at the end, your audience kind of uses that action to completely overturn your profit or consumer market?
This is a very good question. And let me try and give you a non-facetious answer. Okay. So, Pragya, with a question like that, you should move a little beyond Millennium Post, okay? I'm giving you 2 years. Come back to me with where you are. But that's not the point. The point I'm making is that I've dealt with this before, so let me give you the careful answer to this, because I can see that it's a thought out question. I was dealing with a brand boycott in the case of an Indian brand who ran into trouble because they, I forget the exact detail, but they showed, I think, a Hindu boy married to a Muslim performing some, ritual, etc. So it became a huge boycott thing. And I said to the brand that you are reacting in panic by pulling out this ad. They said, why? I said, let's do research on all the people who are sharing the hashtag and running the campaign against you. And do a mapping, like hopefully the Election Commission is doing with the bonds between today and tomorrow. Do a mapping and see how many of those were your customer base. Research. And they found less than 2%. I said, let it carry on. I said, run the ad again. Because just that attention will get more customers watching your brand. So sometimes what may seem to be the wrong answer in the boardroom, and the entire board went, this guy is mad. Why did we hire him? And except for the chairman of the board who had told me, I need you to come in and help to solve this, everybody else thought that I was completely nuts. And I said, do the research. Show me what the figures are. And the figures showed that less than 2% of that audience, which was sharing, hashtagging, running the boycott, were their customers. They were never going to be their customers because the product pricing had anyway put them out of it. Now, when the Bangis are attacking you and you are a Brahmin, why bother? Go on with life. I'm sorry, I'm politically incorrect, I know. You're saying that this guy should be removed from campus, but that's me, okay? What I meant was that the people who could not afford to spend 8,000 rupees on a shoe were attacking a jewelry brand which was 8 lakhs and above. Does it matter? I said, get a life. Carry on. The controversy is good for you. The brand will be remembered.
Should take a question from
So the Palestine question I have not answered. But that's because I'm Cherian. I don't want to get into that just now because it doesn't concern any brand I've actually hands-on worked with. That's the reason. Okay? But I didn't know about Dove. That's interesting what you just said. Dove is also being boycotted on account in Palestine? That I didn't know. Thanks.
Yeah, you just spoke about humor a while back, and you talked about how humor can be used in a totalitarian system. So with yeah, you spoke about how humor can be used in a totalitarian system to help stifle dissent. So with BJP and INC using reels and memes a lot on their Instagram pages, how do you think humor affects political campaign?
I think that humor is a fundamental human enthusiasm. People love humor. So if you want to be grabbing attention, you need to make sure that people who you are criticizing, which is why you're using humor in the first place, are angry enough to respond to you with violence in their replies, which makes it even more funnier. So, you know that when you're teasing a friend, when you hit home and everybody laughs, then you know that you've got the point. Okay? So similarly, with great quality humor, you can attack the most powerful. Correct. And it works all the time. The only thing totalitarians are actually scared of is cartoonists. Absolutely. Because they know how to mind F you. And humor is very difficult to tackle. Very difficult to tackle. Have I answered your question, or do you want to ask something more as a supplement? Thank you. On a tweet. Ask me, I might answer.
Ms. Cherin, now my turn.
Yes.
So, would be wonderful to hear from you if you share the original story of any of the, sticking to the theme of managing crisis. Is there any brand story? Is there any organizational, mismanagement story which led to major crisis, and it impacted the brand, the organization, the reputation, and everything? And what were your suggestions? What were your advice? At that point in time.
I
to
think
that
she
particular
gave a
brand.
very good example, which I then converted into a quasi case study. And I was supremely conscious of the fact that we had hovering above our heads the alleged theme of what I was supposed to speak on. But I hope that even if I haven't spoken 80% of the time on the theme, what I've said is all right.
It's brilliant.
You
it is.
guys want a refund or something? For the tickets? Anyway, so to come back to it, so a good example was this jewelry brand which ran into trouble because of an ad that it... So
I'm talking about yours. There was a time when
this is mine. I'm
Huh?
talking about mine.
No, I'm talking about something that you were passionately hands-on, and something that you want to share with with this bunch, so that there is a greater takeaway. For instance, Tatas versus the Mysteries, the big war between the two of them, and media was just lapping it up.
Okay. So
If I'm allowed to ask a very
no,
specific.
you're allowed to ask very specific questions, and I am allowed not to answer them. The broadest rule that I follow is twofold. One, never talk about your own clients. And the second is never be immodest about your own success, because you're often judged by your last success, which may not be a big success. But you asked a specific question about Tatas and Mysteries. And for those of you who... How many of you remember the fight between the Tatas and the Mysteries? Only the seniors. Old people. So let's look at contemporary stuff, okay? How many of you are aware of the deep shit that Paytm is in? More of you. Okay. So I advised Paytm till the time that they did their IPO, public issue. At the time of the IPO, I told Vijay Shekhar one line, which his fund managers and his private equity guys overruled. So once I'm overruled, not just because I'm an arrogant bitch, no, not for that reason. I actually believe that if my advice is no longer wanted, even though they're paying me a fancy fee, I must quietly go and find some other client who will pay a less fancy fee. So when I found that I was overruled, and my advice to Vijay Shekhar was, one, leave money on the table for the investor. Don't try and grab all the money, the premium on the IPO. Leave a little bit. I fundamentally believe that besides everything else, the problem he had, and he still has, unfortunately, is greed. Greed is a fundamental flaw in any entrepreneur. To win is not a flaw. To want to win is not a flaw. I think, but greed is a flaw. You make too many mistakes when you're too greedy. And as young people, let me tell you That's the reason why I started by saying, don't leave that job for that 5,000 rupees extra a month. Greed. The only way to victory is being willing to take that risk, take less today for much more tomorrow. When Elon Musk sent up the first rocket that didn't fail, the first rocket that did not fail on SpaceX, he had, I may be wrong on the number, he had $80 in the bank. And he took the risk. So, you don't fail because you're taking a risk. You don't fail because you are determined. You fail because you're too greedy. You want to keep that $80 in the bank. That's greed. So think big and postpone instant gratification. The only time that instant gratification plays some kind of a role is when Ambreen's little girl in Aligarh counts the number of likes on her post. At that time, maybe instant gratification can help. But I have a theory about influencers, by the way. I'm not going to go into that because that's not part of our course. It's not on the subject list today. And then he will look in his book and come back saying, your title said this and you haven't talked about this. Just joking, teasing you. Carry on. Any other question? Or we'll go back to Ambreen's.
Any questions? Huh? Raghav or from the faculty? Yeah, sure.
Hello, hi. I'm a faculty of the business school, and I think it's a great pleasure to be here and
Thank
listen
you.
to you. I have questions which are not related to the course or the academic part of it. I'm more interested in Mr. Cherian as a person, and you can choose not to answer. But I have two questions for you. One is that, you are in a profession wherein you just said that sometimes people do not listen to you, whatever your suggestion is. At that time, how do you keep the faith, that confidence in yourself? And I'm asking this specifically from the point of view of the students here. That when the going gets tough or when things are not happening, how do you keep that faith? It could be something very personal. Maybe you are the kind of person that you are and therefore you're able to. But I would just love to understand, how do you keep the faith, that confidence in yourself that, what I'm saying is the right thing and I believe in it? That is one. And the other is, on paper, you are a successful person, like financially, and people know you or whatever. But what is your idea of success? Do you think you are a successful person? I mean, I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Love to learn from you, actually. You don't find such
I'm going to
opportunities.
answer the second question first. I was living a very comfortable life in Calcutta. Parents, home, everything. Then one day, how many of you are from Calcutta? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. Not bad, okay. So one day I got into the number 10 bus in Calcutta and some guy recognized me. Said, Dada, apni oi college jacchen. So I said, how the hell do you know? So he says, no, I've seen you and I know that you were going to this college and all that. So I said, all right. When I got home, I thought to myself, time to leave the city. This is disgusting. When random guy in the bus knows you, you must move to a larger pond. When I came to Delhi, I kid you not, this is a lesson for all of you, since you asked. I only knew one person, one human being in Delhi when I moved to study in Delhi, which was my cousin, which was the reason my father allowed me to move to Delhi. So never be scared about wanting to get into a bigger pond if you think you've outgrown the smaller pond. Same with a job. take the risk. Move to somewhere strange, prove yourself again. So that's one of my core life lessons. And on the first one of what makes you confident that you should not stay any longer when you're not wanted or when your advice is not listened to. That is only a factor of experience, honestly. I've been wrong many times. But I do know that I'm right more often than I'm wrong, by a very large factor. That comes from experience. That comes from being willing to learn. You know, all the answers of questions I'm giving today may seem rehearsed or pat, but it is because you've spent a lifetime thinking about these things. You know that famous, all of you know the famous story about Picasso and that painting, no, of that lady? Yeah. So it's that. How many of you don't know the story of Picasso and the lady? Come on, put your hands up if you don't know the story. I'm going to ask you, the ones who say they know. Okay. So enough people for me to tell that story in very short. It'll miss the point if I make it very long. So he's sitting at a cafe and lady asks him for a painting and he says no, and she pleads with him and he says okay. And he finally paints her, and then she says, can I pay you something? And he says 2,000 francs. And she says, what do you mean 2,000 francs? You barely took half a minute. He says 2,000 francs is for the 20 years it took for me to get to the stage where I could do it in half a minute. So learn to value your experience. Learn to recognize that it takes a lot of practice to get to that stage. And once you get to that stage, be willing to take the risk that if you lose a big client, there's always another client waiting. But never be willing to compromise with your advice not being taken. It can be overruled. I've often been overruled by clients and say, no, we're not going to do that. Give us another solution. I love it. That's a challenge. They've rejected your solution and they've said, give us a better solution. And they've given you data to say, this one won't work for us. So please give us a better solution. I love it. That's a challenge. Don't walk away from that. If you can't come up with a better widget, learn to fidget some more. Spend that time. Have that modesty, that humility to say, this hasn't satisfied them. I must come up with better. And usually that process throws up a much better result. It's a bit of a fight. It's a bit of slamming of the ego. But it's worth it.
Raghav?
So I just have two questions. My first question would be in regarding to refencing of legacy brands. Lately, I've been seeing that the legacy brands are not really putting the investment they have been growing. And once there's a new competition in the market, I don't see them putting those investments or the position they are in and not refencing themselves in a good position and putting themselves in that position. I don't see the legacy brands doing that. Second, I would like to understand is the communication crisis part. And in regards to the list I made is something I learned from you, from one of the lectures called Building Brands and Trust.
So the big question you're asking is legacy brands and why they are unable to maintain their success. I think legacy brands very often miss the bus because they're so successful. You know, one of the things with many successful brands is that they're not willing to question what they're doing. You can't argue with success. In fact, Ashok Advani, who used to publish Business India, once told me that you can't argue with success because you have the profits to show for it. But that's no longer true. Those profits begin to taper off, and challenger brands come and overtake you. There are two ways of looking at it. Many challenger brands are a flash in the pan. So you've got to recognize when you allow them to overtake you, but you know you will take them over. So one of the things with challenger brands is what Google does to them and what Amazon does to them. Wait, let them really grow, then buy them out. So sometimes what we think as what I would call inadequate response by challenger brands is sometimes just waiting the course. Okay? But if you don't know how to time that right, you can get run over. Okay? So that's one of the things that I am seeing today. And the second reason is an inability to understand how the dynamics of communication have changed. And Ambreen referred to it when she talked about influencers. And because I promised that I would answer that fully, I think influencers and their influence are also currently overstated. You know, I've been doing a major political campaign in the last state elections, and I used a technique which has still not become very public, and therefore, please don't tweet about it. But I think that the next game is going to be micro-influencers.
What do you mean? Would you elaborate on that?
You're not even listening, Ambreen. You're looking at your next question, and I know you.
No, I want to cross-question you on this. Yeah.
Micro-influencers are when you are in campus and you notice somebody from Sonipat saying that the best butter chicken is at X place, you'll take that more seriously than some dude who's still arguing about butter chicken in Daryaganj. It's not relevant to you, na? So micro-influencers are those who are close to you either geographically or in income terms or in age terms or in other cultural affiliation terms. So you tend to get influenced by them, and today a lot of smart customers are looking at micro-influencers for the things that matter to them. So the big influencers, what's that guy? Beer biceps, exactly, well done.
Curly tails.
Whosoever suggested that read my mind. And there's also some other guy just now who, this large corporate I was talking to, Sharmani or Sharali? Raj Sharmani, okay? Now, I think that these influencers are at the inflection point. They either grow very big or they're past their shelf life. I think beer biceps is past the shelf life.
But
You agree with me? Wow. I'm so happy. You know why I'm happy? Because I know nothing about this business. I have a son who runs my digital communications for me, and I learn just to make sure that I understand the words he throws at me. Okay? But this is where I'm coming from. The fundamentals are not different in any communications business. If you know the fundamentals, you know that this person is past his shelf life. If you know the fundamentals, you know that economic times is no longer what it used to be. It's mint you or business standard you need to look at. Okay? So you need to understand when that inflection happens.
now, such a moving to image making, which is something that you started, and I got majorly trolled on my platform because I said the original image maker. I'm in conversation with him at Jindal tomorrow, and somebody said, no, he's not the original. But I said, but he's the best that we've experienced in our times. And something, as you said, something which is, which is gone and people have forgotten about it, they've not been able to sustain their success and they've not been able to reinvent themselves. Now, communications has become so huge and image making has become even bigger because now, today, the big political parties and political leaders, they want people like yourselves to advise them and strategize their moves, right? Their moves are also, if you can see now with the elections approaching so closely, what would be your comment on that, on the image making business? And also, what does it entails? Number one. Number two, I want to ask you again a very specific question because I don't give up on specific questions. What would be your piece of advice to the three political leaders from the AAP party, from Congress party, and from the BJP?
Just remind me about the second question after I've answered the first. The business of image management, I deeply respect the person who trolled you, because if you don't get trolled, you haven't spoken the truth. So don't worry about it. But I think image management is a science which, in a sense, I invented because I started with the basics, which is, I said, don't start with the message, which is what everybody was starting with. I said, research the audience. That's all I did. All I did was I twisted the framework and I said, this is more fundamental than this. Today, everybody seems to understand it. But at that time, people thought message making was the key. I said message making is not the key. I did two things. I said, first, research the audience. And the second thing I said was, don't talk to the monkeys. Which is, don't talk to the marketing director. Don't talk to the communications head. Don't talk to the PR head. Talk only to the CEO or the owner. I changed the paradigm. And it is a business reason. Because I had been a business journalist for 10 years, I realized one thing, that the marketing manager's budget is 10 rupees and the CEO's budget is 1,000 rupees. So if you want big fees, don't talk to the marketing manager. Say, my product is not for you. She will hate you for it. Doesn't matter. You're looking for fees, right? So go to the CEO. If they don't take you to the CEO, don't deal with them. So that's how I created the science of image management. Management. I said, go to the management. Don't talk to the functional head.
No, but some time ago you mentioned that the joint secretary who is pushing the policy is equally important.
That's in a government. Government has got nothing to do with companies where you're going for clients.
But political leaders also have their coteries and they are important.
I don't deal with KC Venugopal. Won't talk to him.
So now you have one answer. What about the other big daddies?
No, so the reason is that whether, and I've dealt with all three, I set up the first war room with Pramod Mahajan for the BJP. I was in the car when Arvind Kejriwal gave his first speech to business leaders. And you know about the Congress, I'm not good. But advice for them I don't give because I think political leaders understand their voters better than I do.
But maybe some
I
do
can
not.
do communications advice for them.
No, I'm being
I
specific.
can do communications advice for them.
So with the elections approaching so close, if you had to give advice to three political leaders, for instance, on their communication strategy, because this takes us so much higher than anybody else's, what would be those suggestions, if advice is a very strong word, to Prime Minister Modi, to Rahul Gandhi, and to Arvind Kejriwal?
I'm not Prashant Kishore. So I'm not going to give advice on these three people. No. My first rule is, pay me my fee and then
it-
and then we go outside to a small room and we talk.
Economics, basically.
We do not
Yeah.
talk in public. I've been a media person for a large part of my life, but I think that foolish leaders who try and make their pronouncements on public channels are stupid. Similarly, advisors who give their advice on public platforms are making a mistake.
So what would be your advice in a small room? Individual, three
I,
different rooms.
I won't tell them, as I said, till they pay me a fee and take me to the small room. It is not, see, the great thing about crafting advice is you don't do it in public at all. It cannot be a, what is it called? A
General.
crowdsourcing exercise. It has to be like a psychiatrist or a doctor. It's a one-on-one consultation. Don't take your mom along.
Okay, I can redraft my question. So
You
if
may redraft it as many times. You will get
Let
the
me
same
try
answer.
for the last
I
time.
will not give a public answer on a
Okay.
client matter
if
except to the client.
if Arvind Kejriwal hires me as his communications head because he's just doing so many things wrong or not coping up to the right things that the other party leaders are doing, what should be, as an agency, right? What would you advise me as a friend that I should communicate to him, so that something, right, something is not falling off grid, and we are trying to get some advice in place. Arvind Kejriwal. I'm not saying Prime Minister Modi. I'm not saying Rahul Gandhi. Okay, what is it that one of these leaders are doing wrong? Okay, if not even that, let's even talk about a person like Kangana Ranaut. Okay, what do you think about her communication?
You know, no,
She's not in touch with
I'm
him.
absolutely comfortable. Have you heard of the biggest error that people in communications make? What is the biggest error that people in communications make?
What do you people perceive
As the biggest
a
error that you can do when you're on camera or in front of students or in front of a political rally? What is the biggest error you can make? Fumble, be honest. What is your answer? Being too transparent. State wrong facts. Saying contradictory things. No, none of this. The biggest mistake you make.
react?
No, next. Next. No, next. Okay, I'll tell you what the biggest error is. Being afraid of silence. Have you seen people? They're scared of silence. They'll fill it up with some rubbish.
Good point.
So she's asked a question. I've kept silent. Next question. That is the skill. You should not be scared of saying, I'm not going to answer that. Sometimes, I used to have, I have a friend who's one of the most senior journalists in the country. And you asked him a question, and then you kept quiet. He was uncomfortable. He'd have to fill it up with something. Jabba, 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 jabba.
Stop, basically.
And learning when to stop, when to shut up, is the biggest communication skill you can have. It's bigger than the ability to make poetry on the spot, to crack a joke at will, is the ability to learn to keep shut. So when I said to Ambreen that I will not answer that question, it is because I feel that I'm not smart enough to answer that question. I don't need to prove anything here. I think you guys have got enough for your tickets that you paid for. of traveling or being in campus or living in Sonipat, and your president is walking out anyway. Teasing you, carry on with what you got to do. So I don't need to prove anything more to you guys. But I don't want to make a mistake by just communicating to fill up that space. I respect her enough. I will tell her the answer when we are one-on-one in the car. I'm not going to give any answers here. Too dangerous.
That's
And
why
that,
he's.
that is partially your answer, which is that it lives on forever. But am I scared of inconsistency? No, I'm not. Because I told you, my logic for inconsistency is if the facts change, change your opinion. If you learn new facts, change your opinion. If I think she's gone to sleep, change the volume. That's the trick. It can't be the same thing all the time.
So tell us about vernacular and other languages communications. Is it growing? Is it evolving? And what is its future?
You know, we are living at a very interesting time, Ambreen, where your language will no longer matter. Because what is the most fundamental reason why vernacular will not matter tomorrow?
But Mr.
Give me a
Chair-
reason, or let me get an answer. What is the fundamental reason why vernacular will not matter tomorrow? Correct. Because of translation. Instant translation is literally round the corner. It already exists. It already exists if you can afford it. You can put that object here. You ask a question in Marathi. I get the question in English simultaneously in my ear. And I answer in Malayalam, and she gets the answer in Marathi. Literally real time. What does it lose out on? It loses out on the nuance of language a bit. You know? So there might be some more way to go. But the question I was asking was, she's resting on her laurels. So AI is actually only 1/10 of the change that you will all see in your lifetime. What is the next 9/10? AI is only, just think, AI is only 1/10 of the change that you will see in your current lifetime. What is the 9/10? There is one thing. No? Any other suggestions? Come on, be brave. You. I'm asking you, India. No idea? Okay. What else? Come on, someone. 9/10 is going to be one other thing. What is that thing? Students of Jindal,
Oh my God.
you're in deep, deep trouble. 9/10 is going to be quantum. Quantum computing will change AI more than AI will change you. And quantum is maybe another corner away from where we are. But it's going to be in your lifetime. So, to answer Ambreen's question, yes, you need to understand and address every language. But imagine a world, you know, when Dhirubhai was setting up his newspaper, Dhirubhai would never spend time with me during working hours. He said, इस साला न्यूज़पेपर में पैसे खर्च कर रहा हूं, कभी इसमें से तो कुछ पैसे निकलेगा नहीं, तो तू कभी मेरे को ऑफिस टाइम में बात करना, कभी बात नहीं करना मेरे से. So he'd be going back to Bombay. He'd say, चलो फ्लाइट पे चलो. In those days we used to fly Air India, Indian Airlines. He didn't have jets. He didn't have any planes of his own, and there were no other airlines. There was only Indian Airlines. And the great skill of Dhirubhai was that he could tell me, "Tu mere saath chalo," and we get to the airport. This was before security checks, by the way. There would be a boarding pass in the name of some Nagaratnam or something, and I'd get onto the flight with him as Mr. Nagaratnam. And he'd talk on the flight, and when I get off there, there'd be another boarding pass for my return in the name of Mr. Ghosh, and I'd fly back. He would talk to me only on the flight. Because he said, "Bekar ka time waste kar rahe tu. Akhbar chalana hai." It was his idea. So he told me, now can you imagine the mind of the man? I'm just giving you as an example. He told me, "हम अंग्रेजी में अखबार छपने वाले हैं। वो कोई IIT में होगा कंप्यूटर जहां ये अंग्रेजी को हिंदी भी बन सकता है, असमीज भी बन सकता है, गुजराती भी बन सकता है। हम अखबार सारे जगह में छपेंगे, अंग्रेजी में काम करेंगे और पर आउटपुट होगा गुजराती में." आई एम टॉकिंग ऑफ when? In the 90s. He had already thought of it. And today it's possible with quantum. When quantum comes, instantaneous translation will be the norm. Yes, you still have to speak a language well. Meaning if you do and and oo and patani, it will still translate into that in Malayalam or in Gujarati. But I think that vernacular is dead, in my view.
Okay.
Vernacular won't matter in a very short while.
But I guess in the space that I am in, traditional media, of print, today
Sure.
even your advertisers, whether they're political advertisers or brand advertisers, they all want to know, when they sign a big campaign with you, they all want to know what are the other languages. So there was a lot of pressure for us to not just stick to English, because we would diminish if we would just stick to English. So we expanded to 5 other languages. And today, our digital scale has risen and it's expanded tremendously, because that's what it is. Maybe because it is a political paper, but maybe, I guess there's a
But I
difference
think
between-
even there you will see
Yeah.
that the
shrinks.
digital footprint can immediately be any language you want.
Yeah.
Literally, any language you want. Because machine translation will allow you to do that far more easier. But the skill that will still be needed is to take that machine translation and to add that local nuance. That little twist. A Halim does not translate very easily. And the difference between a Halim and a Nihari doesn't translate at all. You know about that.
Now we
Now
are
we're hungry, yes.
That's something we all know. So any other last concluding questions?
We've got to shut
We
up
can-
now. Okay, last question.
Last question.
1 second, just 1 second.
Alarm?
No, we're okay. Yeah, last question. Mike.
So the recent use of spywares have raised a lot of question on the infringement of privacy of people. How do you think communication is going to shape later on when we see more tech getting into spywares?
Yeah.
Into?
Different spyware softwares.
Ahead.
Good question. My short answer to that is, I think that for your generation, the definition of privacy has changed. What used to be private in my time, in fact, I was asked a question about some years ago by someone who asked me to define the difference between privacy and secrecy. You understand where I'm coming from? And that is the fundamental shifting landscape. I'm not quite sure how much can be kept private. I'm the kind of person who actually has in my car something that I'm sure none of you have in your cars, even though you may have fancier cars than I have. I have a little pouch made of carbon fiber into which if I put my phone, no signal emanates. No signal goes in, no signal comes out. It's a little bag. And when I'm headed to certain meetings, I put it in there and I tell my driver to switch his phone off. Shutting the mobile won't be enough. In the driver's case, that is all I can do because I don't have a second pouch for that. I should have a second pouch. But, till about 7 years ago, I was advising a very large French armament company. And a lady from the French embassy came to meet me. And these were the days 7 years ago, if any of you can remember 7 years ago, you could still take out the battery from your phone. Okay? Now you can't take out the bloody battery from your phone. So she came there and said, hold on, don't talk. And she took out the battery from her phone. So I said, WTF? What's going on? She said, Dilip, I'm not scared about you or anyone else eavesdropping. It's the chaps from my own embassy who will want to know where I went for advice. She later turned out to be the head of their secret service a few years later. And then I learned a lesson that tracking is not by your enemies. It's usually by your own friends who want to know where the hell is he. So privacy, secrecy, and non-traceability are all extraordinarily difficult today. And you have to give up something to gain something in that game. Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cherian. One thing I want to conclude with is my personal experience. I've known Mr. Cherian for last almost 25 years. His heart, his interpersonal skill. So my personal experience, and many people in Delhi would endorse that, is that he could be meeting the highest rank politician or a business tycoon or anybody for that matter. And if he meets that person with the same respect, same affection as he would meet the person standing next to him. So if Pragya, you land up tomorrow to meet Mr. Cherian, and he's meeting and greeting somebody who could be whoever, he'll meet you and acknowledge you with the same care and the same concern, in fact, even more. So that makes him so special. And that is the reason that we all go to him. And sometimes lots of people, just reach out to him for advice, which he doesn't want to share, okay, with people. So it was absolutely great. And I could see that no one has gone off to sleep except for one person in this large crowd. And they've absorbed everything that you've said. And it's been a learning for me also, as always. So thank you very much for making the time for us.
We'll help you get it. I'll help you get it.
You'll figure it out?
Yes.
You'll clobber whoever is necessary?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Cherian and Professor Khan. Well, that was mind-messing to say the least.
Oh, messing. I should have used that.
Yeah, that's what. See, I could have not said
Next time.
mind-messing. It is.
Messing is good.
Now I'd like to invite Pia Khurana and Muskan Kaur to felicitate Mr. Cherian with a token of our appreciation.
Thank you. Very personalized. We've done enough drama. They've got the pictures they want. Thank you. Come on, this side. This side. Put it behind you. No, it's fine. No, it's fine. Thank you.
Come, read.
Come on. How can we not have the president? What do you call him? Something close to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's so nice. You know? So much effort has gone into it.
Take a picture of all of you people. I've never